All right, welcome back to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Jackson Tolliver. What a weekend in Boston sports. Obviously, the highlight was the epic Game 7 victory last night by the Boston Bruins against the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are now advancing to the second round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, which will begin tomorrow night. Celtics, we finally found out our opponent. It's going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. Revolution got a win, and Red Sox salvaged a series and got a win today against the Minnesota Twins. So we will dive into all of that. Let's start off with the Bruins. It was David Pastrnak after another day of stagnant offense, of disappointing, just poor control of the puck, great defense, and a great performance from Swayman, as we've seen from him all series long. The offense just still couldn't get going, went down 1-0, and I, for one, thought that was that. It was halfway through the third period. The Bruins had looked sloppy, just like Games 5 and 6, seemed like more of the same, and all of a sudden, Hampus Lindholm somehow sneaks the puck right by the right shoulder of the goalie, right into the net, and the Bruins are back in it. It was 1-1. Goes to overtime. I've been very vocal about not liking the Bruins' overtime appearances this season. I thought it was over. I'll be honest, I didn't think the Bruins had a chance, but they did, and they did it. It was a remarkable, marvelous, miracle-like bounce that found David Pastrnak alone right in front of the net, has the puck on his stick, moves it to the left, slides it in to the right of the goalie, and that's game. Sudden death, overtime. Bruins are able to win. Crowd's going nuts. Pasternak's happy. Everybody's excited. Jim Montgomery keeps his job. And this Bruins core stays together for now. We'll see how deep it goes. We'll see what happens. But if they had lost this game last night, it would have been bleak. Now, I knew they were going to lose Game 6. I said that in the last episode. I also said I thought they would win in 7. I just didn't see this team backing down. Now, there are some pretty significant concerns that I have with the Boston Bruins right now. I think even though they won last night, it was still an awful game. Yes, the defense was good, and Swayman was good, and Swayman deserves the most lucrative contract extension this offseason ever. I mean, he single-handedly won the series for the Bruins, I would argue. Kept them in it last night, made some great saves, kept them in it in really all the games. He just did everything he was asked. He was absolutely remarkable for them. So I hope they stick with him going into the next round. But David Pastrnak went ghost these last 3 games until that moment where the game was on his stick and he responded to playing poorly. He responded to Jim Montgomery calling him out in the Game 6 post-game conference saying, I need more from my guy. I need more from my star player. That's you, Pastrnak. Where have you been? Here he is with the game on his stick. He ices it. He ends it. He moves on for the Bruins. And now they're going to play the Florida Panthers, who just exacted their revenge. The Bruins are going to look to exact their revenge on them this year after they ended their season last year, their historically great regular season. They were supposed to win it last year, and they didn't. Panthers ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals, and now the Bruins have a chance to get their revenge after they certainly got their revenge during the regular season. 4-0 against the Panthers. 2 of those wins were in overtime, so they were close games for sure. All of them were really close games. And now the Bruins have a chance to continue that success that they had against them in the regular season into the playoffs. I believe they were on the plane to Sunshine, Florida today. They're going to be there. They're going to practice. And tomorrow it's go time. They have very little turnaround time. Tomorrow the series begins. So a few notes on this series. I actually think the Bruins are going to win this one. My reasoning is, first of all, the obvious one. They were remarkable against them in the regular season, as I already mentioned. 2, I think the Bruins in Games 5 and 6, for whatever reason, lacked that motivation, that extra gear that they just didn't kick it into. They had a chance to end the series a lot earlier than they did, obviously. It took them being down in Game 7 to really wake up and start playing like the Bruins that we've seen that makes us happy, like the good version of the Bruins. There's really 2 versions of the Bruins, and to be frank, in Game 5, 6, and the first 2 periods of Game 7, we were seeing the bad version of the Bruins, and then when they were down 1-0 with their season on the line, we saw the good version. So I think, the reason why I say all this is because against the Florida Panthers, I think we'll see the good version of the Bruins because they're angry about what happened last year. That was Bergeron's last ever series in a Bruins uniform, playing it for any NHL team. He was fired up last night, by the way. That was fun to see. He was the honorary captain. He was just amped up for the Bruins. But that was supposed to be the swan song for Bergeron and Krejci. Maybe even Marchand would have called it a career if they had won the Stanley Cup. Who knows? That was supposed to be their time, and it was taken from them by the Florida Panthers. So with that being said, I do very strongly believe that the Bruins will have that revenge energy, have that get-back energy against the Florida Panthers. And hopefully that will iron out some of the ugly problems that they've been dealing with throughout the series and throughout the regular season. Not being able to hold on to leads, not being able to produce enough offensively. The defense has been super cleaned up and has been playing at a very, very high caliber, right? Austin Matthews came back last night, the superstar for the Toronto Maple Leafs, probably the best player in the NHL right now, and they were able to hold him very, very effectively. Yes, he was a little bit injured, but they were able to do a great job on him. And it's really such a tremendous credit to the defense as a whole and Swayman as well for the Bruins winning the series, as I already mentioned. I would keep Swayman throughout this whole series. Ullmark, I'm sorry. You just got to ride the hot hand. Ullmark, in the only game he played, while it wasn't his fault that the Bruins lost game 2, I would say, because he did make some great saves, he did let in 3 goals. And Swayman hasn't let in more than like 1 or 2 goals the whole series. So it's got to be Swayman throughout the whole series. If he comes out and he stinks it up in game 1, yeah, go back to your little rotation thing that Jim Montgomery loves so much, and I understand why he loves it. It's worked for him all season. He's got 2 great goaltenders, so I understand why he would lean that way, but you got to stick with Swayman after what we've seen. He has just been absolutely remarkable, and every Boston Bruins fan is just adoring him right now, and they have to, like I said, they have to bring him back at all costs. They have to give him whatever he wants. So my overall prediction, like I said, I think the Bruins will win this series against the Florida Panthers. I think that these jobs are safe. And when I say that, I mean Jim Montgomery. I think he's safe. I think David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy and this Bruins core is safe. If they had lost this first round, that would be a much different story. To be the first team in any major sport between the NHL, the MLB, and the NBA to lose 2 3-1 leads in a row, to choke 2 3-1 leads in a row, that would be pretty bad. They could still do it this year. There's still 3 more rounds, but for now they avoid it, and hopefully they can continue that trend. Meanwhile, the Maple Leafs, their 7th Game 7 loss in a row. That's pretty brutal. So the loser of last night's game was going to end up on the wrong side of history. Luckily, it wasn't the Bruins, but like I said, I will take the Bruins to win this series against Florida. Give me Bruins in, unfortunately, I think it's going to go to 7, and maybe 6, but I think 7 makes more sense here. I think the Bruins will dig deep. The Panthers are a very good team, but since the Bruins did so well against them in the regular season, I think they're going to have that extra motivation because of what happened last year and because of the fact that it's a good team. I'll take the Bruins. Give me Bruins in 6 or 7. Let's roll. Let's move on to another playoff series happening in Boston. This one kicks off on Tuesday. It's the Celtics versus the Cavaliers. That's right. After all the anticipation, the Celtics have been done since Wednesday, unsure of who they were going to play. Game 7 happened today. Cavaliers won after being down by 18 in the second quarter. They were able to come back on the back of Donovan Mitchell, who scored, I believe it was 38 today, after scoring 50 in Game 6. He is a remarkable player, and the Cavaliers will now be traveling to Boston probably tomorrow to play them on Tuesday night. Now, this series, I think it's a lot more close than people will give it credit for, and I think it's going to be a lot more interesting than I've heard people say. Donovan Mitchell is a bona fide superstar. He's given the Celtics a lot of problems. He loves playing well against the Celtics. He is going to go for 30-plus average in this series, I will assume. And you have another certified Celtics killer in Max Strus, who has performed very well against the Celtics in the playoffs. You have a double big lineup. Now, yes, Jarrett Allen did sit out in today's Game 7 with a rib injury. We don't know how much longer that's going to keep him out for. But a double big lineup with no Kristaps Porzingis, who is all but confirmed to be out for this entire series. So you have Al Horford going against 2 7-footers. So there are some elements of this series where you could look at it and say the Cavs actually have the advantage. Then if you turn and look at the Celtics and their confidence and their tendencies to play down to their competition, Cleveland is a team that I could 100% see them playing down to because they're not a big market team and they haven't had playoff success and they had a worse regular season record. But you got to remember there was a stretch this year where Cleveland went like 16-2 or something crazy and just had a dominant stretch. I think it was in like February where they just torched the entire NBA. They fell off a little bit. They've dealt with injuries all year. The Celtics, I believe, never played a fully healthy Cavs roster this season because in their first, they had a 2-game homestand against them and Evan Mobley wasn't playing. And then the game that they actually lost, the Dean Wade game, Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing that game, and I believe Strus wasn't either. So they have yet to face a fully healthy Cavs squad, and I don't know what that's going to look like, which scares me quite a bit. This is just about the only team that they haven't played in the East where they haven't been fully healthy. So I don't really know what to expect. Now, Cleveland played very poorly in games 3 and 4 when they were on the road in Orlando, and that's the Orlando crowd. The TD Garden crowd, I think, is really going to affect this Cleveland team just based off that alone. A lot of these guys aren't very experienced playoff veterans. Donovan Mitchell's Jazz teams never really did well in the playoffs, and last year the Cavs fell flat in round 1 against the Knicks. Garland has no playoff experience. Strus does, so maybe he'll give them that extra edge. But Allen and Mobley, same thing really. So that helps the Celtics. I think that Darius Garland is going to be hunted for mismatches like a hunter finds a deer. I mean, it is going to be ridiculous the way that the Celtics are going to exploit him because he's not a defender whatsoever. So look for that. That also bodes well for the Celtics. But this double big lineup is going to be tough to get around. And it might end up being great practice for the Minnesota Celtics potential final matchup because Minnesota won last night in Game 1 in Denver, stole home court advantage. You never know what's going to happen. I think that one's going to 7. But it could happen that Minnesota ends up being the team to come out of the West. So anyway, I digress. But that double big lineup could be a good preview for that. It's going to be really tough, though. I mean, J.B. Bickerstaff is an inferior coach to Joe Mazzulla, so that helps. But like I said, the double big lineup is scary, and Donovan Mitchell is terrifying. Karis LeVert has also had some great games against the Celtics off the bench, so look for that to continue. Basically, what I'm trying to say with all of this is that the Celtics won't match up as easily with this Cavs team as a lot of people are saying. I think this is going to 6. I think the Celtics can win it in 6. In Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, that would put them in it over in Cleveland. Maybe even 7. I don't know. I don't think it goes any lower than that, personally. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they hopefully take a 2-0 series lead, which I do expect. I do expect them to start out hot, but I expect Cleveland to be really good at home. I've been to a lot of Cavs games. I started off my college career out in Cleveland. They get rowdy over there, and they were rowdy today, and Cleveland plays well at home, so I don't know. I could see this being a much tighter series than people think. But again, we will see. I was actually over at Celtics practice yesterday for my new job over at CLNS Media. Kristaps Porzingis was being interviewed. I was very shocked when I walked on the court of the Auerbach Center and saw him walking around with no boot on. He looks fully mobile. He just says that he's not ready to, play basketball. There's a difference between walking around and playing basketball, obviously. But he said that when he sprained his ankle, he came down from a rebound, stepped on Hero's ankle, and rolled his own a little bit. And then he thought he was overcompensating for that injury, and that's when the calf strain happened. So that makes sense. But I don't expect him coming back for this series, as I already mentioned. So look for Al Horford, Luke Cornett, maybe even Xavier Tillman to step up. This is why they went and got Xavier Tillman, to compete for backup big minutes if either Porzingis or Horford wouldn't be able to go. And while I think that Cornett is still a better fit for this matchup and for the Celtics team because of the double big, they're both so tall, Mobley and Allen, so you need someone to counterbalance that. I could see Tillman coming in for some stretches in this game if needed. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So you never know. I will still take the Celtics to win this series, but expect some big performances from Mitchell. Expect some big performances from the two big men. And hopefully they can cruise through and wait for New York, because I think the Pacers aren't going to give the Knicks any problems. I don't think. I think the Knicks will take care of that one in 4 or 5. Celtics-Knicks is seems all but inevitable to me as the Eastern Conference Finals matchup. And then the finals matchup could be Denver, could be Minnesota, could be OKC, could be Dallas. I could see any of those 4 teams making it out. So we have a very, very strong playoff field so far, I would say. You can actually bet right now online. The Celtics to win is like plus 120, and then anyone else to win is like minus 140. So that's an interesting one. If you're a betting person, I would personally take the field because the odds are too good. Minus 140 for anyone else besides the Celtics to win. Yeah, that's pretty good. But I don't bet anymore. So if that's you, go ahead. I'm taking the Celtics in 6. Book it. Take it to the house. Let's keep on moving on where we have the Red Sox, who had a tremendous game today. I actually started recording while they were still in progress. They were up 9-2. Let me see if that's what it finished at. I want to give you the most accurate information. Yes, 9-2 with home runs from Rafael Devers and Ceddanne Rafaela. Wow, he is looking good this year, huh? He hit a 2-run shot, and I believe Rafi did as well. And the Red Sox offense was just dominant today. They had a 4-run 8th inning. The pitching was really good. They held Minnesota to just 2 runs. That's what you want to see. Cooper Criswell is, I think, surprising a lot of people as a starter. He's been doing really well. The bullpen, I mean, you had 6 different guys come in there today. Bernardino, Kelly, Boozer, Winkowski, Jansen, and, of course, Criswell, who I mentioned, was starting. And they did great. Held them to just 2 runs. They were on a 12-game win streak, Minnesota, and the Sox were able to snap it. And that shows that the Sox aren't a bad team, as many other factors show. The Sox being able to snap a 12-game win streak shows that they're legit, and shows that they still have wildcard potential, which I've been saying all year long. Now they head over to Atlanta, which is going to be very tough. Obviously, that goes without saying. Atlanta are still perennial World Series favorites. Luckily, it's only a 2-game series. I think the Red Sox get swept in this one, to be honest with you. But then they return home, and they have the Nationals, so I think they'll be able to get back to winning ways. To go a little bit more in depth on the losses, the first one was a 5-2 loss. Red Sox were able to put up 2 runs in the 8th inning, but beyond that, the offense just couldn't get anything going in this one. And the Twins were able to capitalize. Who was was this someone? No, yeah. This was the one where Julian and Jeffers had 2 RBI apiece, which really put it away. And yeah, I mean, this was just a disappointing game, really, from Tanner Houck too. Wasn't great. 3 errors for him in this one, or earned runs. Sorry, errors. I saw the ER. I'm thinking 3 earned runs for him in this one, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Nothing to write home about. 6 hits, not great from him. And then the next night, it was 3-1. Again, it's like, yeah, holding the opposing offense to 3 is pretty good, but the offense has got to be better than this. This is just unacceptable, frankly. So yeah, offense has got to be better. Nobody could really get anything going in this one. And then today, that all turned around. So that's all good. I'm not worried about the Red Sox. I believe I predicted they would lose this one 2-1 in terms of the series. So now standing at 19-16. How many games back are we? We are 4 games back of the brutal battle for first place happening right now between the Orioles and the Yankees. I don't expect the Red Sox to finish first in this division at all, but I do expect them to continue to tread water and hang out above the Rays and the Blue Jays. I believe they have their first series against the Rays coming up relatively soon, within the next 2 weeks. Yeah, that one kicks off on May 13th, so a week from tomorrow. I expect them to win that one as well. I'll obviously preview that one as it gets closer, but for now, yeah, I expect a 2-0 sweep for the Braves. I think their talent is just too much for the Red Sox to overcome at this point. Hopefully I'm wrong and they can split. Absolutely no way the Red Sox win both of these games on the road in Atlanta. Maybe that's just me. Let's keep moving on. The Revolution finally won a game. Thomas Shankali with a godly strike in the 61st minute, I believe. Maybe it was somewhere. It was between like 60 and 65. Absolutely wonderful strike. And this is what happens when you get him more involved in the game plan. I mean, Chicago is clearly the inferior team here. Talent-wise, coaching-wise, all across the board. Revolution tied with them last time out. And last night they were able to get the win after a pretty significant rain delay. It was like an hour and a half. They were able to kick off and win. And, I mean, what more can I say? Shankali has the ability to score, and this team still has the ability to defend well. It was it was a start, the debut of God. I need to look it up because I want to make sure I pronounce this guy's name right. What's the name of the new goalie? It's like Ivacic, I think. Ivacic, I want to say. Let me get some confirmation on that it's Ivacic. I'm fairly certain that it is. Regardless, I digress. Yeah, Ivacic. He did well last night. They're starting Arriaga over Romney at this point. Not too sure how I feel about that, but I won't gripe. It clearly worked out for them last night. Bajraktarevic drawing the start. So clearly Porter is playing around with these lineups. Barrero came off the bench. I assume that he will end up back in the starting lineup eventually. No Farrell last night, so he's clearly experimenting with this. Glad to see Bajraktarevic get the start. I don't know why Buck has been exiled from the starting unit. This doesn't really make much sense to me. He's obviously a young player with tremendous promise, and I think that if they keep this up of just exiling him to the bench, he won't be on the Revolution for much longer. I think that's basically the prediction anyway. But this was a great win. I mean, this is a great way to gain some momentum. It's just the thing with the MLS right now, which makes it so hard to discuss and assess, is if you look at what Messi did last night, right? 5 assists and a goal for Inter Miami. And now the rumor is they're getting Angel Di Maria. They're just bringing back the old Barcelona squad. It's what can you even do? You know what I mean? What can you do if you're a team like New England, who just doesn't have the resources that Miami has, and definitely now doesn't have the star power that Miami has? What can you do to counterbalance that? And the answer is frankly nothing. I don't see any of these teams being able to compete with a healthy Miami team in the playoffs, so it's tough to be an avid fan. It's kind of, in a way, ruining the game. Now, there are pros and cons. The pros are, of course, it brings so much more attention and money into the league, and it helps the league grow because Messi is arguably the greatest player of all time. So him being in the league helps Miami grow, but there is such an imbalance right now in power. I mean, Cincinnati's also up there. I'm looking at the standings right now. Miami's first with 24. Miami's 3 points back, but are also Cincinnati's 3 points back, but also a game back. So they could get up there. I don't know, but I don't know. What I'm trying to say is it's hard for me to focus on the Revs right now or any MLS team because Miami is just that much better than any other team. So that's where I'm standing. Next up, they got the New York Red Bulls, who are currently 4th in the league. That'll be tough. Only 4 wins. They have managed to script together 5 draws. So, they've been relatively mid despite their spot at 4th. They've just been able to capitalize on draws rather than losses, where a lot of the other teams in the league right now, they only have 2 more wins than the Revs. The Revs just have 7 losses, which is the most in the entire MLS, I believe. Yeah, it is. No, San Jose has 8, so not quite. I digress. I will take the Revolution to lose, unfortunately, against the Red Bulls. I think unless I'm wrong and they can start to gather up some momentum, hopefully that is the case. I just don't see it happening. I digress. I'm waffling on. So, thanks so much, as always, for tuning into Title Town Talk. My name is Jackson Tolliver. I'm your host, as always. Be sure to tune in to these games coming up. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. We have a jam-packed week where it's Bruins tomorrow, Celtics the next day, Bruins the next day, Celtics the next day. So, Boston fans, make sure to keep it here. I will keep you updated, give you all the details on what's going on. Like I said, my name is Jackson Tolliver. I will see you on Thursday.